Hey, you fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Sutek. My name's Adam.
This is episode 403. Welcome everybody to the latest episode of the Big Blue Box. We hope you are keeping well and safe. Hope you've had a cracking week and that you've all managed to do something Doctor Who related. Of course, this time of year when there's new Doctor Who going out, we hope you've done something Doctor Who related. Those of you that went to the cinema, hope that was a cool experience. Hope that was good. I heard it was a cool... I saw quite a few people on Twitter coming out of the cinema saying that, thoughts on their episode aside, it was very cool being in the cinema watching a couple of eps of Doctor Who. So that's cool, dude. That's all good. Yeah,
you always get a good atmosphere, don't you, when you're surrounded by other Who fans? A bit like when we go to the BFI and that. It's good to get the reactions to things on screen with other people.
Yeah, it's very cool watching Doctor Who in the cinema because it feels... like event cinema uniquely, doesn't it? Because it's not a feature film, it's a TV show that you happen to be watching on a big screen. It's very cool. And when we go and watch Doctor Who at the BFI, that's 99% of the time that's classic Doctor Who that doesn't have the widescreen treatment or anything, so it's typically a 4x3 square in the middle, which is still very cool. But I can imagine, for these dudes who have just seen it in widescreen, new Doctor Who, with all the visual effects and all the cool production values of the newer stuff, I imagine that's very cool in the cinema. So
I saw a couple of pictures of the IMAX, which is in London, which is a huge screen, absolutely massive, and just seeing the sort of Doctor Who picture on there looked pretty cool. So yeah.
No, it looks great. So I hope you enjoyed yourselves, those of you that went to the cinema. Those of you that catched it at home on the iPlayer like we did and all that, we have our review of that episode, Empire of Death. That's coming up a bit later on in the episode. How have you been, bud? Have you had a good Doctor Who-y week? How's that puzzle coming on?
Yeah, so listeners, I like a puzzle, and I've bought a Doctor Who one from a charity shop, and it's the Pandorica TARDIS, like the Van Gogh painting of the TARDIS exploding, and it's 1,000 pieces, and it is so difficult. It's driving me mad. But I just once I start doing it, mate, I lose hours. I just sit here and I'm like, I'll just get one more piece. I'll just find one more piece, and then I look at the clock and I'm like, blimey, I've been doing this for 3 hours. Okay, I better do something else. It's addictive, and it's driving me crazy. But it's getting there. I mean, it's. I can see a little bit of TARDIS has started to form, so it's getting there. But it's on the table downstairs where I'm currently recording. So every time we record the podcast, I have to put my laptop carefully on top of the puzzle because the signal's slightly better downstairs. So every time we finish recording, I have to be very careful not to wreck it by moving the laptop. But but apart from that, I've had a fairly decent week. I mean, the weather has been incredible in the UK. We are finally getting the summer, so it's been nice and sunny, which means I haven't been indoors doing much, but I did watch the Tales of the TARDIS, the Pyramids of Mars one.
Oh, cool.
Which was pretty cool. I mean, we got a little intro and a little outro from the Doctor and Ruby, which was nice. I mean, it was pretty brief. It was briefer than I was expecting, to be honest with you. But as for the sort of cut down of Pyramids of Mars, I thought it was fairly decent, actually. I don't think we lost anything that really affected the story. It didn't feel too butchered. The new effects, what there were of them, were okay. They basically just replaced Sutek's, the vortex tunnel. But yeah, it was really cool to watch Pyramids. I haven't watched that for a while, actually, even though it's a classic and one that I really like. It's been a while since I've watched that story, so I found myself getting really quite engaged by it. I'd forgotten how mad the organ music is in it. Imagine watching that in a theatre. It'd blow the sound system out, wouldn't it? But yeah, I enjoyed watching that again. Did you watch it, mate? What did you think?
Yeah, it was cool. It was nice. It was a nice little trip down memory lane to see that stuff from Pyramids of Mars. I would like to have seen a bit more of the Doctor and Ruby, though. That's the only thing. But other than that,
yeah,
it was all right.
I thought there'd be more.
Yeah. Not too bad.
I'd forgotten how alien Tom is in that story in particular. Like, he seems quite cold and excuse me, heartless. You know, when I've forgotten the character's name, but when his brother dies, and there's that great line where Sarah says, "You don't seem almost," and the Doctor's like, "Human, I'm not." Blah blah blah. You know, he's very he's taking it very seriously, and I think that builds up the threat of Sutekh that the Doctor is just, you know, needs to knuckle down and get on with things. He hasn't got time to, you know, to sort of mourn people who have died as much as he'd want to. He's got to defeat Sutekh, and there's a sort of sense of urgency and danger around Tom's Doctor in that, which an intensity, if you like, which really came through when I was rewatching this. But yeah, I enjoyed that, mate. Like you, I expected a bit more of the Doctor and Ruby, and I was sat there wondering how that was going to fit in to, you know, the episode Empire of Death. I thought, is this going to be, you know, is there going to be a place in Empire of Death where this scene might have happened? And it kind of did. I mean, you could imagine that, you know, in the middle of the episode. So that was quite nice. You could fit it in quite easily. So in a way, I wish there had been a bit more, if you like.
Yeah. No, I agree. It was just, well, I go, you can't expect too much of this, I suppose. You know, it's only a fun little addition to what we've got. So it was okay though for me. I quite enjoyed the just hearing the classic music and some of those scenes and stuff. And like you said, going back and seeing how Tom was back then, some really amazing stuff in that story. It's a great story.
Memory TARDIS feels. Oh, it is a great story. Yeah, it is a proper classic. I'm gonna say the Memory TARDIS feels very cozy, doesn't it? I'd love to just they should rent that out for weekends or something, because I'd love to just go into that TARDIS set with all the different bits from all the different eras around it. And you got Jodie's. It kind of cracks me up. Jodie's console miniaturized as almost like a little campfire on the floor, reduced to a campfire. But yeah, it looks pretty cool, actually. I was going to say this is a review, but I'll just say it now. I think in a way, the impact of having this in Empire of Death, the Memory TARDIS, has been slightly taken away, I think, by having these little Tales of the TARDIS episode. I was feeling like if we hadn't seen it, that moment where the Doctor goes into it in Empire of Death would have been quite a wow moment. But I think having seen it quite a lot now in these little Tales of the TARDIS episodes, it's kind of taken away any impact that TARDIS had in the final. But then again, a lot of people haven't seen it, because you were asking last week if this was just a UK thing. And apparently it is. Tales of the TARDIS is only available to watch in the UK. I'm sure a lot of people have found a way around this, you know, but our friends on the Doctor Who Show podcast were saying, you know, you can't watch it in Australia, you can't watch it on Disney Plus. So yeah, I'm sure people have found a way to watch it, but it does seem a bit of a shame that all these nice little intros with former companions, you know, has been sort of limited to a UK audience, if you like.
No, I read you. Yeah, and I was surprised that was that it wasn't included on those streaming services and whatnot.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
Yeah, it does seem strange, because you would have thought. I mean, I know that Russell said this was quite a while ago, I think now, he said in an interview or a couple of interviews that he really wanted iPlayer to be the home of everything Doctor Who, certainly here in the UK. So it would make sense for that, of course, but for our friends across the pond and down under and so on, yeah, you would have thought that they would have at least, even if it wasn't going to live permanently on Disney Plus or whatever it was, it would have been a nice little thing just to put out as a one-off maybe, or something like that. So yeah, and I can't see any issue with licensing or anything like that. All these things seem to be rocking and rolling. So yeah, a bit of a strange one, that, dude.
It is strange. I don't know if it's because I think RTD sort of said it was a bit of an afterthought, because the memory TARDIS set was built for Empire of Death, and then I think Russell thought, I know we could use this for these little segments. Well, not necessarily an afterthought, but it was definitely something that happened sort of after. And I don't know if that has any effect on getting it onto viewing platforms or what.
Possibly, yeah.
But they have been nice. I mean, the one that sticks in my mind was the Vicky and Stephen one, where they were talking about the first Doctor. That was lovely.
That was cool.
That little intro.
Yeah.
Can't remember which story it goes into now. Is it the time?
No, it's...
Anyway.
Yeah, I know. That was cool, though. And another thing on this subject was that they've obviously changed a couple of things for what we know now to be like a bit of a soft reboot, especially for the international market, which is why they changed it to season 1, etc., and all that stuff. So you would have thought that this kind of content would be even more important, I guess, to supplement all of the new stuff that a new viewer might sort of dive into with the new stuff, because of all the references and fan service, especially in the episode we're going to review today and last week's one, where it references heavily an old villain from Classic Who and all that stuff. You would have thought that it would be almost essential, I guess, to have these there, so that a new viewer could, without having to go out and purchase a DVD or a Blu-ray or source it somewhere else, would have at least, a little peek into some of that classic stuff. So yeah, it's weird, isn't it, that they wouldn't do that?
It is, because I mean, these sort of cut downs with these Tales of the TARDIS intro and outros are kind of designed to appeal to a new audience that may not have seen the episodes before, but don't want to sit through, the episodes unedited with credits, and they are sort of condensed versions of the episodes that are designed to actually to appeal to a new audience, aren't they? And to get them into the classics and into the rest of the series. So it is, it's a shame, really. I mean, it's the sort of thing you can imagine would be on Disney Plus, but then they don't have, like the iPlayer has all of the classic series on there. Disney Plus doesn't have any of the classics, and it doesn't have any of the 2005 to now series either. None of the Eccleston stuff or Tennant, does it? It's literally only got Shooter's series, so maybe that plays into it. But yeah, it does seem to does seem a shame, because surely that's the whole point, that you're trying to get people into the Who-niverse rather than just series 1. It almost feels like they're going for different things.
Yes. Yeah, a bit weird that. Yeah, a bit weird.
But apart from that, mate, I haven't been up to much else. What about yourself?
Nothing other than watching that Tales of the TARDIS and watching our review a couple of times, as always. No other Who. There's no... I haven't got any new Doctor Who books to read at the minute or anything like that. So, yeah, fairly quiet on the old Who front, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I just had 2 new Doctor Who books turn up yesterday. The 2 new 15th Doctor ones, Caged and, what's it called? Ruby Red? Or Ruby Red, I think. Yeah, they just turned up on the doorstep yesterday. But I'm actually finishing. I realised, there was a book you were after, and I've forgotten what it was called, from 10 Acre Films, but the author did one called Pull to Open.
Oh, yeah.
No, sorry. Maybe that's the new one. No, it's called The Long Game.
It's the first one.
Which is all about the first one. Yeah, I realised that I'd only got about 3/4 of a way through that book. I thought I'd finished it. So I'm actually finishing that in a minute, and it's fascinating, mate. It's a story all about how the show actually came back in 2005, and there were so many issues. Like the BBC didn't even know if they owned the rights to Doctor Who anymore, because they thought they'd given them away because of the McGann movie, because that was supposed to turn into a series. So there was so much red tape and confusion around that whole era. And Russell was keen to come back, but they didn't know if Doctor Who was still because it was going to cost a lot of money. It was a bit of a risk to take, even with Russell on board. And it's a fascinating story, that. But it just is so interesting to see the passion of the sort of 3 or 4 people, including Russell and a couple of people that were sort of working their way up to being, in charge of entertainment at the BBC at the time. Really them, because they wanted to bring the show back, actually making it happen, against a lot of people who really didn't think they should bring it back and weren't bothered at all, and didn't even know if they could bring it back, and couldn't be bothered to even find out if they had the rights to, whether the BBC still owned Doctor Who, which is crazy to think. So it's a fascinating book, that, mate, and I'm actually just finishing off reading that. I need to get the other one, though, the one that you wanted. Is it called Pull to Open?
I think it's called Pull. Yeah, it's the
modern
Who.
I need to get that one, which is all about. Is that all about how they brought it back in? Well, how it started rather in 1963.
Sorry, yeah, the classic, so the Hartnell,
the classic,
leading up to the Hartnell stuff. Yes, yep.
Yeah, when I finish this book, I'll get that.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Good stuff, man. So you've done a couple of bits then, way more than me.
Yeah.
Good. Okie dokie. Before we get on to our review of Empire of Death, we just want to make sure that if you are new to the podcast, if this is your first time listening to the Big Blue Box, then welcome aboard. If you are if you're a long timer, if you're one of the grizzled ancients, then welcome back, of course. Whoever you are, then it's good to have you here. Just make sure you are following or subscribing to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and wherever you're listening to your podcast right now. That way you won't miss an episode when it goes out every Friday. And we also have a monthly roundtable episode as well with the writing team, so you can hear us waffle about Doctor Who in a bit more detail, a bit more depth with those guys. It's always fascinating, so make sure you're following or subscribing. You can also listen for free over on the website, which is bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. And you can also check out all the reviews and articles from the writing team. Those guys are very cool. And we're on the socials too, Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, the odd bit on Threads here and there and some other bits. But there's links on the website. Come and give us a like and a follow over there as we chat Doctor Who each and every week over there. And we have a very cool free Discord server. So hop in there and chat Doctor Who with lots of other very cool Doctor Who fans. Also, don't forget...
Our Discord's been... Before you do that, before you don't forget to remember, our Discord's been going mad, especially since the special aired. So yeah, definitely dip into the Discord and get your opinions heard in there, because that's been on fire the last couple of days, doesn't it, our Discord?
It has.
People have had a lot of opinions on this episode.
Yeah, it's been very cool, actually. We have a dedicated channel just for season 1, and we have another one for just general chat, and then there's loads of different channels, all different areas of Doctor Who. So there's something for everybody there. So yeah, it's been very cool. So to hop in there and chat some Doctor Who. And also,
don't forget to remember.
Yeah, don't forget to remember to check out my co-host's channel over on YouTube. It is, of course, the Geek's Handbag.
Geek's Handbag, yes. I've just dropped it. Well, by the time this pod goes out, maybe. Not sure. Depends when it drops. But I'll have a new video out this week looking at 2 really nice Doctor Who vinyls. The Edge of Destruction picture disc, which came out for Record Store Day, and there's been a new vinyl release of the Highlanders exclusive to HMV, which is gorgeous. It's on like blue and red vinyl. 2 lovely, lovely things that have just come out. So go and have a look at that video where I unbox them and take a look at them.
Give them the once over and all that.
Yeah, they are nice, I tell you. Especially that picture disc, mate. Whew, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it looks lovely, that dude. Yeah.
It is.
Alrighty. So, with that being said, let's crash into our review then of Empire of Death, which was first broadcast last week on the 22nd of June. It was written by Russell T Davies, directed by Jamie Donahue, and stars Ncuti Gatwa, Millie Gibson, and a dozen and then some of supporting cast actors, all pretty much back from the previous one, Legend of Ruby Sunday. Synopsis is thus: Sutekh has won and spread his gift of death across all the universe. Holed away in a remembered TARDIS, can the 15th Doctor and Ruby find the one thing that vexes the god of death himself and save the day. So pretty short and sweet on the old synopsis there. Not giving too much away, but right, dude, the finale then of season 1, Empire of Death. What are your thoughts out the gate on this one?
Actually, before I say my thoughts, mate, were you? Did you stay up at midnight to watch this?
I did. I did indeed.
Okay, yeah. So did I. I'd actually spent the whole day feeling quite depressed that I hadn't bought a ticket to see this at cinema, because I'd rewatched the part 1 and was really hyped for it, and then I was seeing so many pictures on Twitter of everyone in the cinema posting pictures of the Ncuti on the screen with the big rainbow behind him or whatever it is, and I was like, oh man, I was like, why didn't I? I would love to. I should be watching this in the cinema, and I was a bit peed off, to be honest. I was thinking I'd made a terrible mistake. But anyway, I stayed up to watch it at midnight, and when the episode finished, I was so glad I hadn't spent money, A, going out to see this at the cinema, and B, having to get a taxi back at like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, because I was so disappointed in this as a wrap-up and as a season final. Like, after a brilliant build-up of the first part, this was just such a letdown. It was absolutely full of plot holes galore. It was very clunky as well. I didn't think the episode flowed. It was. I found it quite boring a lot of the time. It didn't engage me at all. It didn't seem to have any sort of atmosphere to it or flow. And I just thought, when it finished, I just switched it off and I sat there and I just felt nothing. I just literally felt almost numb. I thought, what on earth? Just what a load of old codswallop that was. I really was disappointed. No. And I was up till about 2:30 in the morning afterwards, just looking at the reaction. And for once, because I thought, oh no, it's going to be one of those episodes that I didn't enjoy that everyone else is now going to say is the best thing since sliced bread. And for once, it seemed like everybody was saying the same thing. And I thought, oh, I'm glad it's not just me then, because I really did think that was a huge, huge disappointment. But the reaction I saw afterwards was exactly the same. Even people that had been to the cinema, and people like our good friend Morgan who went to see it at cinema, and I messaged him afterwards and was like, didn't want to be too down on it because I knew that he'd spent money on it, And I was like, what did you think, dude? He's like, oh, we were just like, no, that didn't hit the mark. I'm like, oh, no, it didn't really, did it? So yeah, not great, mate, I'm afraid. Really, really feel let down by this. And as I said, even watching it on a first watch, there were things that I just thought didn't make sense, which we'll get into. But then on a rewatch, and I've tried to make as many notes as I can, and believe me, I reckon I've got about 3 pages of notes of things that just don't add up, that for want of a better word, are plot holes or lazy writing, or just don't make any sense at all. You can't just excuse them with a sort of line to make them make sense. It's just terribly, terribly clunky. And I'm just going to sum it up by saying unsatisfying, really unsatisfying as a conclusion. And it wasn't any better on a rewatch yesterday. I just felt the same thing. I struggled to get through it, to be honest. So yeah, what a shame, mate. I loved part 1, and I tried to, not be too... I tried to sort of make sure my expectations weren't too high, because RTD is known for not doing the best payoffs with the series. But, episode 1 was so good, I couldn't help but sort of be hyped up a bit for this one. But yeah, didn't work for me, mate, I'm afraid. Really felt let down by it. What about yourself? What do you reckon? Oh, dude, didn't land for you. So I'm kind of on the same lines as you with it, bud. Yeah, pretty much. I think more than anything, it's just this season as a whole, it has got a very similar vibe to this finale, where it's very, very frustrating, I think is the best way to put it, because the season as a whole could have had some much better episodes based on the ones that we've had. And this finale could have been an amazing finale based on the classic monster that they had brought back and all that stuff. So I enjoyed The Legend of Ruby Sunday way more than this, dude. I thought that was a really good build up, and just a much better... It felt like older Russell T Davies more than anything. It felt like, I think we mentioned this last week, where it could have easily been a Tennant episode, that, or an Eccleston episode. It felt very sort of old school, which is not to say that we don't want to see any new things from Russell, but the newer stuff that he's brought to the season so far hasn't really, in my opinion, I think both of ours, it hasn't really sort of stuck the landing with a lot of it. And so in that respect, it should have been a great, really good finale, but it like you said, there was quite a few plot holes and things didn't really tie up, and
it was weird. But more so, it was just a massive anticlimax to two very big things. The first one for me being Sutekh.
Yeah.
That was the first big one for me. It was like, wow, if you're going to... There's one thing wheeling out Cybermen and Daleks all the time and having to reinvent those guys. And we've had different versions of the Daleks over the decades and stuff. And you can kind of recycle them in a way if you've got a good writer, you know. And the same with anything, I guess. But with Sutekh, who's only ever had sort of the one proper outing on TV, and I'm not talking about any of the Big Finish stuff, but just one televised proper outing from Pyramids of Mars, that it's always regarded as a really good up there sort of Tom Baker story. You know, if you said to 1,000 Doctor Who fans who are into classic Who, what's your top 5 Tom Baker stories, Pyramids of Mars is normally in there. And because Sutekh is such a great, just a really, really good villain from that era. So to bring him back, or to bring them back, and not have anything really sort of happen with it was just, it was a bit of a disappointment, that. And then the second thing for me was the whole wrap-up of Ruby and who her mum was and all that. You know, that was a big old... Oh, so it was just that person, you know. So I can definitely see where Russell was trying to take this. He was trying to put across this whole thing about even the most like from the outside looking in, even the most normal looking person who's led the most normal life and is the most just, you know, all that stuff. They still can be very important. I get what he was trying to do there with Ruby, but it was just felt very anticlimactic because of that. It's like, yeah, I kind of see what you're saying, and I really wanted to come away from this one thinking, right, we had a bit of a shaky start with some of the earlier episodes, but we found our footing. This is going to be a great sort of springboard into the Crimbo special, and then season 2 should be a belter. But it felt like we went back a step. So now I'm like, oh, okay, what the bloody hell is the Crimbo special going to be like? And where are we going to find ourselves in season 2? You know, because it's clear that either the myth that's been doing the rounds over the last, I don't know, since 2005, there's been this Doctor Who myth that the BBC or whoever it is has got this contract with the Terry Nation thing that every single series of Doctor Who has to feature a Dalek. So either that was rubbish, or the BBC or Disney or whoever have bought that contract out. But I have to be honest, mate, I'm quite looking forward to seeing the Daleks or something like that next season. I'm not going to lie, because normally it's a case of, you know, should try something different. We can't always be up against whoever it is, you know, the Centaurans or the Cybermen, whatever. But I don't know. I think I wouldn't say I've missed them, but I'd rather have had some sort of shaky Dalek doing something rather than what we did have with Sutekh, if I'm being honest. So, yeah.
To be honest, mate, the whole thing with Sutekh confirmed my worst fears. I think I may have said on last week's podcast that he's brought out the Sutekh to get the wow factor of Sutek's back. And I think I said, now what? What's Russell going to actually do with Sutekh? And I said I was worried he was going to do nothing with him. And that's exactly what he did. He did nothing with him. He just reduced him to this dog-like creature. I mean, the thing with the dog on the lead at the end, I just felt was so awful. He was lit. So Sutekh has been built up to be the biggest threat in the universe. The Doctor was terrified of Sutekh, and rightly so. It's a great character. Reduced to being this Scooby-Doo dog being dragged through a vortex on a lead. And again, I will get to this, but even that didn't make any sense. How he killed Sutekh off at the end has made no sense. Death bringing life and all this nonsense. But he did nothing with Sutekh. He said that Sutek's been riding the TARDIS all these years since Pyramids of Mars. I hate that idea. Absolutely hate it. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And it brings in, again, so many problems. If that's the case, if Sutek's been on that TARDIS all this time travelling with the Doctor, The TARDIS has exploded numerous amount of times, like in the Big Bang with, Matt Smith's Doctor, where it was constantly exploding. You've got Frontios, where the TARDIS is destroyed and broken up into. Honestly, you only got to go on YouTube. You can find a million people doing a list of all the stories that contradict the fact that Sutekh can be on top of that TARDIS. Poor old Adric, when he's taking the dimensions in Legopolis, was sat up there with Sutekh all this time. It's a horrible idea. I don't like it at all. But that's the thing. Sutekh did nothing. He was just this sort of monster of the week, defeated unbelievably easily by a piece of rope. I don't care if it was intelligent rope. It was just a ridiculous way to wrap the episode up quickly. Just left me feeling so cold as a wrap up. And the whole everyone lives because he's dying and he's been in the vortex this whole time, so why would it kill him? Just none of the ending made sense to me at all. But jumping back to the beginning, because I don't want to get too ahead of myself, as soon as everybody started to die at the start, the Sutekh brings the gift of death. As soon as Kate and Morris and everybody, Ruby's mum, Mrs. Flood even, as soon as they got turned to dust and died, you instantly knew a reset was coming. Yep. There was no other way this story was going, because there's no way he's going to kill off all those characters for good. Yeah, I think if it had just been UNIT, I might have thought, oh my God, they've killed off Kate Stewart. I might have fell for it for a minute, but as soon as everybody else started dying, I was like, well, no, the big reset button's coming, isn't it? And that's exactly what happened, and it was one of the worst reset buttons, mate, because it just was explained away with a line that didn't make any sense at all. But I'll come back to the ending when we get to it, because there were other things about it that just didn't make sense to me. Yeah. But Sutekh being wasted, absolutely knew that was going to happen, and it did. He didn't know what to do with him. And the reveal of Ruby's mum that you mentioned, that wouldn't have bothered me so much if it wasn't sort of pivotal to the story in this, if it wasn't the reason that Sutekh was keeping them alive, and it was such a big plot point that to have it just be resolved by, oh, she was just an ordinary person all along, again, just didn't make any sense with the DNA thing. Why would Sutekh care whose Ruby's mum was? Why would that bug him so much that he would keep them all alive? That didn't make any sense. The DNA thing didn't make any sense because they have to go into the future to get it, but then, wouldn't UNIT be able to do that? Why couldn't Davina McCall find it if DNA's been a thing? And mate, it was just a can of worms, and the whole episode, the more you look at it, just crumbles before your eyes under the weight of all the plot holes. Yep. And that's just a few of them. That's not even that's not even doing a deep dive into it, you can hear the frustration in my voice. I just find this episode, and you said it, so frustrating.
Yeah. Well, don't worry, dude.
I'm going to have to back off. I can't simmer. Need to simmer.
Yeah, have a drink. I think it's a shared frustration, though, bud. There have been some Marmite episodes in this season for sure. There definitely have been. We've seen in some of the review scores, we have a bunch of people that have given things a 3 and a 4, and then on that same episode, we've had people give them a 9, an 8 and a 9 and stuff. So there's definitely been Marmite stuff. But this one, I think, was just universally. I've seen the odd person saying, "Oh, I'm not sure what all the hate is about." And, first of all, hate's a strong word. We'd never hate anything. Certainly there's no hatred here at all. But I've seen people say, "I'm not sure what all the hatred's about in terms of this episode and stuff." But for the most part, I've seen a lot of people say it was relatively poor in most areas, and when we get onto our listener reviews in a little while, we'll go through some of those. But yeah, it's a weird one because it almost, do you know what it is, dude? It almost felt like, to me at least, and I'm no expert on this stuff, as I've said many times, I'm not going to make a claim that I could do any better or anything like that, but it feels to me like this season was either a massive rush job. So it felt like after Jodie's era and Chibber's leaving, etc., there was a bit of a clean house. Like when Russell left the first time and Moffat joined with a new doctor and everything like that. These sort of really big not just the Doctor changing from one actor to another, but literally the entire production team and everything. It felt like it was that again, but because there was much bigger factors involved, like Disney and a brand new production studio and all the rest of it, it feels to me, after watching the season as a whole now, and particularly this episode, that it was a case of, right, Russell, we really need to get a sort of reinvigoration of Doctor Who happening. What can you do in this space of time? Because we want to go, we want to do these seasonal specials as well. So that was another thing to have to do in that time frame, which was the 60th specials, then going back to the Crimbo special and then filming everything for these 2 seasons, you know, a lot of stuff there. And so I think Russell just potentially was like, ugh, I mean, yes, we can do it, but, you know, I haven't got as much time as I would like to really flesh out some of these ideas I've got. And that's evident in some of the plot holes you mentioned. You know, it's one of those things. And not only the specifics in some of the details of the episode, but just generally the feeling of it. So in the past, where we've had things like, you know, with Tennant and Catherine Tate, where they've gone through this storyline where Donna thinks she's the most unimportant person in the universe. She's just a temp in Chiswick sort of thing. And the Doctor said, you know, oh, you know, you're really important, you know, you're Donna Noble and all this stuff. And then a bit later on where he's like, you know, why do you and I keep meeting? There's something about you that's, you know, that's drawing me to you. And then ultimately culminating with the whole Dr. Donna thing and all that. That all made sense to me. Because it doesn't do your typical kind of science fiction-y, there's an absolute technical reason for that. That's just like you're dipping into the feelings of like fate and destiny and that sort of thing. It's a bit wishy-washy, but it made sense to me because that was how those characters were written over a few series and a couple of specials and stuff. Whereas this stuff where it's like, you know, death to death equals life, and, you know, Ruby's mum just being this ordinary person, but is special, but at the same way as completely confuddled Sutek, you know, the most random, lame thing that would ever confuse him. You know, it's going along the same lines, and you can tell that it's quite Russell-y in that respect, but it just doesn't make any sense at all. And it's just done in a way that's like, you know, we've kind of been here before. You know, that's the feeling that I got as I was watching this one. I was like, we've kind of been here before with Russell. If you think about some of the sort of big reset-y button things that we've had in the past. But mate, you said, as soon as you saw Unit start to sort of crumble to dust and then some of the other people, I sat forward in my chair. My wife was like, what's the matter? And I'm like, reset's on the way. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you can't just kill off every character, you know, and that's it. I mean, potentially you could, but there's no way that they would do that in Doctor Who. That, you know, you kill off the odd character here and there, but, you know, just to have the entire... And then it sort of, you fast forward a little bit and you see the Doctor looking out and he sees the Earth being covered in dust and the entire planet being wiped out. And then he goes through, which a nice little part of it, to be honest with you, was when he was going through all the different planets that were affected, you know, like even Skaro, the Ood Sphere, and all those sort of places. And you think, oh, okay, this is all right. But at the back of your mind, you're thinking, that's all great stuff, but it's ultimately going to mean nothing because we're heading for a massive reset. So your frustrations with it all, dude, are very much shared, I have to say.
The thing is, mate, I can forgive a lot if I'm being entertained. I can forgive a lot of plot holes, to be honest with you. This is coming from someone who enjoys Time in the Rani. I can forgive a lot if I'm being entertained. But there are certain things that if they rub me up the wrong way will affect my enjoyment of an episode, you know. I mean, we saw when the Doctor's in the TARDIS screaming, we saw the whole of the Earth and everything turning to dust and that, but actually it wasn't, was it? Because none of the when we went back to Earth, it was just the people that were turning to dust. The buildings weren't turning to dust, so why was he looking down and seeing all the planets turning to dust? Things just didn't add up. And Ruby's mum, the one thing that... There's been such a build-up to this, as I said. I kind of get that Russell thought he was pulling the rug from under our feet, and he probably thought he was doing it in a clever way. But the reason it was so frustrating is because that would work if you'd have done it a different way. But to have Ruby's mum be this 15-year-old that goes out to, it doesn't want anyone to see her, but she's going to sort of leave this baby on a church doorstep and run away. To have that person as a cloaked figure who points at a road sign when no one's looking to name her. Things like that are just, they don't add up, And there's only so much sort of forgiveness you can give in terms of like misleading the viewer into trying to take them down a certain road. Why would Ruby's 15-year-old mum be dressed as Emperor Palpatine walking through the snow? Why would she point at a road sign to name it when no one is around and she's trying to be inconspicuous? There's just things like that just frustrated me.
Yeah, it's also very random as well, in that why would you do that in the first place? Like if you walked past a road sign and it said that, that's one of those things where you're like, oh, okay, cool. That's kind of cool. Wouldn't have mind naming her Ruby based on that. But to stop in your tracks, turn around and point for however long she pointed for, a random sign, when there's no one else around, why would a sane person do that anyway?
Why does it
Weird.
Snow? The snow thing was never explained. Every time Ruby's thing, it starts snowing.
Well, I kind
there
of
was
got
a
that.
line about her.
I got that, dude.
Yeah.
Well, I think I've got that. And I think that links into the whole remember TARDIS thing. So the Doctor says at some point in this episode, he's like, a memory is time, time is a memory, and this kind of thing. So I think what he and Russell are trying to get at is that if a memory is strong enough, it can be manifested in the real world. I think that's what they're trying to say.
Okay.
So,
yeah. All right.
So the memory TARDIS was there because Ruby had such a strong image in her head of it and a memory. It was able to be made solid, if you like, to a degree, to travel in it. So I think that's what's happening with the snow. The memory is so strong, because the Doctor did say, memory is time, blah, blah, blah. So I think when her memory of that scene and that scenario is so strong, it manifests itself, which is what happened throughout the series. And then that kind of, I think that tries to make more sense of the memory TARDIS being able to be physically interacted with.
I like
think,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I like that, mate. That again, that works for me. This is the thing. Most things you can find a reason for. You can normally find an answer for anything if you really try hard enough. So yeah, I like that. That does work for me. What about the song in her heart when Maestro had her all strung up in the musical chords, and he was like, "There's something different about this girl. She's got a hidden song that even Sutek can't find." Again, implying that there was something mysterious about Ruby, but what was that about then?
Don't know.
Okay. Oh, I thought you had all the answers. Oh no,
I never have all the answers.
To be fair, mate.
Yeah.
As I say, you can find answers. I'm sure. I'm sure you can explain this stuff away, and I'm sure Russell will do his best to do it. But it doesn't detract from the fact that for me there was just one too many questions. Really, sort of for every answer you got, there was 10 questions asked. If you know what I mean, it was just
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of that, wasn't there? One of the other big ones as well, which people are... this is an interesting one because it's one of the few ones that Russell actually chipped in on and basically rubbished himself with this one. So this is the whole Star Trek transportation teleport thing. So, there's a bit in the episode where What's-Her-Face is in the actual TARDIS. Harriet Arbinger. She's in
Harbinger, yeah.
Yep, she's in the actual TARDIS, and Sutek summons them basically, and with a flick of the switch on the console, it cuts back to those guys, and they get beamed like in Star Trek to Unit's HQ, where I'm sure it's Unit HQ where Sutek is, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, and then there was an interview that Russell did. Well, I think it was on the commentary or something like that, and he basically said, this is where all of the sort of common sense around plot writing falls to the wayside. He said, I hope we never see that again in Doctor Who, because it's just weird and I don't want to see that again. But it's just so even Russell at this point is saying, look, we need to do something because we can't have any... Essentially, there's no rational way to accomplish a couple of things without throwing canon and lore to the wind a little bit. So that was a weird one. And I'm not sure how I feel about that, dude, because Russell has said that he hopes that never comes back to Doctor Who. And I think I agree, because that's just another thing where writers can write themselves into a bit of a corner, but then, it's okay, we can just teleport them out of there and to wherever they need to be. So that was another weird one, right?
What was he? Sorry, I didn't quite get it. So what was it he was saying? He hoped wouldn't come back to Doctor Who?
This concept of being able to teleport somebody through time and space without having to use the TARDIS to actually travel there.
I see. Yeah, so he's criticising his own writing on the behind the scenes. Is that what you mean?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, he's basically said...
What?
He's basically said, I'm just not happy with how we did that. I'm sure it's on... it was either the commentary that he did with Bonnie Langford, or it was a separate interview that he did.
Might have been on Unleashed, was it?
It could have been on Unleashed. Let's have a look. While you're talking, mate, I'll find it so I can quote him properly. Okay. I don't want to misquote him, but
don't misquote him. Yeah. No, I mean.
Here we go. I've got it, dude. Sorry. So
go on.
Yeah. So this is him quoting. He says, "In Empire of Death." He said, "Bring me the Time Lord and the Child and their precious secrets." That's Sutekh basically demanding that he wants to speak to them. And Russell then went on to say, because of the absence of the remembered TARDIS, we have complete narrative collapse at this point, where the TARDIS just invents a time beam, quote unquote, that transports you through time and space. We just invented it, something that we'll never use again, and I hope we don't, where the TARDIS can just whoosh you through time and space without a TARDIS. He says, it pains me, and I blame everyone else. Let's just forget it, never again.
Oh, right.
So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it's one of those things, isn't it, where you need to get people from A to B, but there's literally no way of them getting there. So what do? You have to just come up with something, so it's one of those. Yeah. So I don't know, man. I think this was on, this was the BBC iPlayer in-episode commentary, by the way.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's a weird one, isn't it? For Russell to even say, we did it, but I hope we don't have to do it again because it was kind of rubbish.
I do wonder if he's taken on too much this series. I mean, he's written quite a lot of the episodes in this first series, and I think it really has showed. I think he stretched himself a bit thin. So for him to be even sort of admitting that himself is quite eye-opening. I mean, it was one of the many bits in the episode where I sort of was like, what? So I'm not really surprised, to be honest. At this point, there's been too many bits where it's just sort of explained away with a line that actually, if you stopped and went, sorry, what was that? It just doesn't make sense. I think we've had a bit too much this series of that sort of thing.
Yes,
that down with this sort of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I agree, dude. So story-wise, man, not really checking a lot of boxes, being truthful. Is there anything that you did like about the story or about Sutekh or anything?
Well, to be honest, mate, I thought it's mainly the bulk of the episode where it loses me. I thought it started off okay, sort of picked up from last week, and we got a bit of action and the Doctor and Mel on the Vespa and stuff. It was quite a fun intro. I think where the episode lost me was where they went into the memory TARDIS, and we seemed to spend a long time in there moping around with the Doctor screaming out the doors, which I feel like didn't affect me in the way it was supposed to. I feel like that was supposed to be a really emotional moment, but it didn't make me feel emotional at all. I was just like, just go in. A bit like Mel last week. I was like, just pull yourself together and fix it. The whole middle section of this episode for me didn't really work. We went to that strange planet. Felt very Star Wars to me. I don't know if it did you, being a big Star Wars fan, but where he met the woman and asked her for a spoon, which actually I didn't mind it. I thought it was an interesting sort of direction to take the episode, and it just again felt clunky. It sort of, we got that bit, then we're back onto something else. But mate, wouldn't the TARDIS is a memory TARDIS? Surely there was a spoon or a piece of metal in there somewhere. Like, where's the Seventh Doctor's spoons when you need them?
Exactly. That could have been a great.
I was very surprised.
Yeah, that could have been
very surprised.
Yeah, a great little
That would have been much better.
To McCoy's Doctor, right? Just have a couple of spoons lying around.
Surely. But yeah, that's kind of, it's where the episode started to lose me a little bit. But you were asking if there's anything I liked, so I am trying to think of stuff. Because I did like the first sort of 5 minutes, got rocking and rolling. I thought, here we go. The Blinks gets blown to pieces. Oh dear, poor old Blinks. Although miraculously, even he comes back to life when Sutek dies, so that was okay. But the ending, I suppose, in terms of the sort of goodbye between Ruby and the Doctor, did I like that? No, I don't think I even liked that, actually, thinking about it, because I didn't... I thought Millie Gibson was very good in it. That's about all I can say. I didn't hate this episode. I sound like I do. I didn't hate it. It just didn't hold together for me. You know what I mean? Right, so I have to be honest, mate. I am struggling to think. I liked Mel. Okay, I liked Mel. Thought Mel was good in it. I am struggling, actually, mate. There wasn't a lot that worked for me in this one. I'm clutching at straws here. But no
worries.
Yeah, I don't want to jump ahead because we'll talk about characters, won't we? But no, there wasn't a lot I liked, actually. Now I think about it. I just can't. I've got to be honest. I can't. I'm plugging at straws, mate. Help me out. What did you like about it?
Yeah, no worries. I mean, I thought some of the visuals were very cool. We mentioned last week when you said you weren't too taken with how Sutek in the big jackal form around the TARDIS looked. I thought there were some really cool visuals when, as crazy and ridiculous as it sounds, when the Doctor's dragging him through the time vortex. So conceptually, a bit weird and a bit of a lame way to defeat him. But visually, I thought that looked really good as he was like scraping the edges of the time vortex and just how that all visually looked. You can tell that they had reserved a little bit of budget or additional budget for the finale visual effects. I thought that was very cool. So anything that involved like space and planets and time vortexy stuff, I thought that looked really good. You can absolutely tell they've had a few more quid chucked their way for the VFX guys, so that was cool. And I also really liked the twist with Mel becoming one of Sutek's lackeys and stuff, and so I quite like that. I thought Mel's character was not too bad in this, and that's potential. I mean, the ending was it was not too bad. I quite liked Ruby's strength towards the end, when the Doctor's saying to her, look, are you sure about this? Because your mum's had plenty of opportunities to come and find you in the past and she hasn't done. So her life is stable and normal and, and upset the apple cart, basically. And Ruby's like, nah, screw it. She goes and does it anyway. And then presumably she'll go and find her dad because there was a mention of that. She had to go and look into that. So I liked, and I we'll come on to Millie Gibson, but I thought she's been a highlight for the entire season, really, and she was pretty cool in this. So, yeah, there was a couple of things, dude, that were cool to me. Mainly, I did like the ending. Actually, that's one of the notes I made, mate. Is that I did love the moment where, because I'm really liking Ruby as a character, and I think Millie's been superb. And that's one of the notes I made that I did like. So I have found a positive. Was that bit where the Doctor was like, she's had all these years to find you, and she didn't. And I thought, is Ruby going to go in? And she just right before the Doctor's even finished speaking, Ruby's like, let's go, let's do this. And I thought, I think I said this while watching it out loud. I'm not sure, but I'm not sure if I said it in my head or if I actually said it. But I think I went, yeah, go on, Ruby, get in there. I thought she is such a strong character. There's like no messing, no like standing there bawling her eyes. Like, oh, I don't know whether to go in. No, she just let's do this. She goes in, sits down. I'm gonna speak to her, and I loved that. Just the no messing, no nonsense from Ruby in that scene. I loved that bit. Yes.
So I have got one bit I liked.
It wasn't too
bad. And the visuals,
yeah.
mate, you're absolutely right about the visuals. Even though I didn't like the design of Sutek because he looked like a dog. I much prefer the jackal look. And I think that would have been great in CGI if he looked more like he did from the end of Pyramids, the jackal, but with modern day effects would have looked so much better than this dog that they came up with. And I believe there's reasons for it, which I'm not going to go into on here because it's just more of that nonsense. But I did like certain visuals, like when he was wrapped around the TARDIS. There was a bit where he was spinning it round, sort of hugging it like a toy, and I thought, that does look good, actually. So visually it was pretty cool, I will admit.
Yeah. No, I agree, dude. Yeah, and interesting on the whole Sutek thing. I think very, very briefly, Russell had clarified to the design team that he was no longer an Osiran, because after Pyramids of Mars, he's evolved basically into a god, proper god, through prolonged exposure to the time vortex after piggybacking off the TARDIS for so many years, and so they decided just to do away with the whole, because that was an option. It was, they wanted to create, the designers wanted to create the original sort of aesthetic of Sutek. But
well, I may be wrong, mate, because I don't quite understand it. I've heard a few people bring this up on various podcasts and stuff about cultural appropriation or something, and from what I'm reading into this, and I may well be misreading it, is that Russell once again had a problem with it being some sort of, had a problem with Sutek, how he looked back in the day, because it leans into something that could be seen as, not appropriate. Or this is what I understand. I don't know what cultural appropriation means, so I don't know. I mean, but if he has a problem with, he seems to have a problem with everything nowadays. He has a problem with Davros. If he has a problem with a character, don't use it. That's what gets my back up. If you can't, if there's some reason that you feel like he doesn't fit the 2024 lens or whatever it is Russell keeps going on about, then don't use the character. Come up with your own.
Mm-hmm.
That's what gets my back up. But that's all. I won't go into that can of worms.
Yeah. So no, I read you, dude. So the whole cultural appropriation thing, it's essentially is the kind of, it's where one culture or an identity of people, they adopt the same sort of element or elements of another one, either inappropriately or without knowledge and stuff like that. So he's basically saying that, all of the Egyptian stuff from Pyramids of Mars was that because essentially it was the Osirans who, the Egyptians got their look and feel and all their cultural stuff from. Right. And he's obviously saying that that's not, anyway. So I think for those reasons, they decided to move away from the Egyptian-looking Sutek and all that stuff and having more of a sort of a generic monstery kind of thing with like a little bit of Egyptian flavour in there, I guess. So, but there's ways of doing that, though. There's lots of different ways they could have done that. If anyone's seen the Marvel series Moon Knight, which was very, that the entire crux of that is all about Egyptian gods and all that stuff. That was done in a way that, they could have easily done something that referenced the original Sutek and whatnot. But yeah, they just sort of, I wouldn't say it wasn't a cop out. It was just a case of, right, we need to do something different. So what do we do? Sutek's now a god, so he can't look the same as, when he wasn't a god, even though he was kind of in Pyramids of Mars. So what do we do? So that's what they ended up with.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, it was weird, the whole thing about Sutek hugging the TARDIS all this time. Who'd have thought it, eh?
Did you? I didn't like that idea at all, mate. I don't know about you. I really didn't like when I could get on board with if Sutek had jumped on board to when in Wild Beyonder, with the whole salt being spilled or whatever it was that the Doctor said. I think I can get on board with that because that's when we sort of heard of the TARDIS groaning or whatever, and what's that about?
Oh yeah.
But so I could deal with that. That's absolutely fine. But to say he's been there since Pyramids of Mars is. How did you feel about that being on the TV screen, by the way, when we actually saw a clip from Pyramids of Mars and the Doctor looking at himself on... Was that a bit odd?
It was odd, yeah. Yeah.
And why does the Doctor refer to the Fourth Doctor and Sarah Jane as they travelled in the TARDIS? Shouldn't it be we travelled? Why is he saying it as if it's a different person? When he's talking to Ruby, it's like, she says, who are they? Talking about the Fourth Doctor and Sarah. And he says, they used to travel in the TARDIS. What do you mean we used to travel in that? You're the same person, aren't you? Well, that was a very deliberate line, and I wonder why. Is it saying this is a different person, or what's
dude,
that about?
That's not dude.
No, another can of worms. I know. Yeah. Sorry, I feel I'm being very ranty on this podcast, listeners. I do apologise, but as a fan, you do get quite invested and het up about these things. So forgive me.
That's
please
all good,
indulge
mate.
me a little bit.
Yeah, it's just one of those. It's another little plot point that doesn't really make sense, because I wouldn't mind if there was some consistency with that. So when the Doctor has explained to, do you know what? More so, just a huge bit of exposition for new and casual viewers. There's been a couple of episodes where the Doctor's had to explain in sort of pretty clear terms, this is what the TARDIS is. This is what the TARDIS does. I've lived for, whatever, different incarnations of myself, blah, blah, blah. So in those moments when he's talking about his previous selves and all that stuff, if he referred to himself as they, those people previously, then it wouldn't be, there would be some consistency there. So the fact that he said that they travelled in the TARDIS, it's like, yeah, you're right. It's like, no, that should have been, I travelled in the TARDIS with this companion called Sarah Jane. And that was me back in previous incarnation with my companion, sort of thing. So it was weird.
He's already explained that he can change his face. Because I was thinking, is it just that he doesn't want to get into this, even though they seem to have a lot of time on their hands? Maybe he doesn't want to get into this right now about regeneration, and explaining that to Ruby that's this, this is me, but when I changed my face. But then I thought he's already kind of done that. So, and he's got plenty of time. They're just sat in the TARDIS having a kip and having a chat around the campfire and stuff. So I didn't get that.
Yeah, it's weird. And the whole Sutek thing that's just latched himself or themselves onto the TARDIS this whole time, that to me feels a little bit pantomimey. To me, that's like, he's behind you, like, oh, he was there the whole time. It's it's a bit of that's a very, very thin for me, because that could have been done with literally anything with the same sort of ridiculous consequence, right? That could have been, oh, the TARDIS is playing up. Oh, do you know what? There was a Cybermat in the console the whole time, and it was programmed to come to life at this very moment and do this thing to the TARDIS. And those bloody things, it's been there the entire time. Or it could have been some kind of element that's been there the whole time. It's just very pantomimey for me, dude. It doesn't have much of a... And like you said, there's been stories where something pretty significant has happened to the TARDIS, but yet Sutek has just remained there and all that stuff. It just doesn't...
Why was he bothered about Ruby's mum as well, mate? Why would Sutek care who Ruby's mum was? He's destroying the whole of creation, but now hang on, he's keeping them alive because this mystery bugs him so much, even more than the viewer watching it. That again, why would Sutek care who Ruby's mum was? Sort of the whole plot point of the episode. That again bugs me.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. I think what Russell was trying to do with that was, I think we've seen this a couple of times, right, in films over the years, where somebody is ready to execute the final plan, but something stops them, and then you've got somebody around saying, "What are you doing, mate? What are you doing? Let's do it." And then the person's like, "Oh." We've seen it in like jewel heist films in the past and stuff, where they're ready to make their escape, but there's one big jewel left that's staring at them and they can't resist, and they jeopardize the whole plan because something's bothered them, and they, that kind of vibe.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, so I think he tried to do that, where his master plan was executed perfectly. Sutek has won, essentially, everything's good. But no, there's this one thing that's sort of niggling away at him that has given the Doctor a window of opportunity to do that stuff. So conceptually, no problem with that. It just, the execution was like, oh, come on. Come on, dude. Are we really saying that the god of death that has pretty much wiped out all life from the universe, bar a few, is really losing sleep over who Ruby's mum was?
It's so ridiculous.
It's very thin. Even for some quirky stuff that we get now and then in Doctor Who, even that, it's just very, very thin, dude. Yeah.
The bit where they attach the dog lead to him and drag him into the vortex? It kind of reminded me a bit of Leia strangling Jabba. I don't know what, just in the sense of it was a bit ridiculous. He could have just turned them to dust there and then, and yet he just goes, "Roar!" Starts sort of getting all angry while while they're attaching it and dragging him into the vortex. I thought he'd just click his fingers and they'd be dust. Did you
So
think...
essentially what happened was Russell was in a coffee shop putting some notes down for a script and saw a dog lead get trapped in a car door and the dog get sort of tugged down the road a few feet before they realised. And so he's like, right, gotcha. That'll be a fantastic ending for Sutek. Yeah.
Did you think, when the Doctor blew the whistle, because I was wondering, what's this whistle thing all about? Did you think our little friend K9 was going to come out of the TARDIS? Because I did.
No, I thought at this point all decent. Any decent level of fan service was shot to bits at this point. So
okay,
we'd had enough of it at this point. Yeah, just because when we went into the Remember TARDIS, we had so many little Easter eggs with the props and everything, and then with Mel being back and the big one, obviously Sutek being back, I thought, that's it. That's enough fan service for one finale. I think throwing K9, however brilliant that would have been, I thought to me anyway. At that point, I was like, no.
It's just that my little mind was ticking over with theories because I was like the whistle, and we've got all the ramps around the TARDIS now, which is perfect for K9 to come shooting down those around the TARDIS console and out to shoot Sutek. I could see it happening, but I was a little bit disappointed. It might have it might help the episode a bit for me if I'd seen old K9, but no.
But
instead, we got a weird laser thing shoot out, didn't we? I don't even know what that was. This weird laser shoots out the console.
Yeah, that was another
the TARDIS back
thing.
What was that?
Yeah, that was another thing. Right, we need to do this, but we've never had that before, so we're going to have to invent it really for the episode, which is weird. But one thing that makes the whole thing just completely okay now is that when the Doctor does, trap Sutek, or Ruby leashes him with the rope and everything, the thing that makes everything cool and just gets rid of all the plot points is that they were wearing the intelligent gloves, dude.
Yeah, those intelligent.
So, yep, it's like the Doctor's shades all over again. It's like these little weird things. It does
make me think the shades.
Yeah, like this little weird thing that we're going to anchor the entire universe on. It's this quirky little thing that we saw many, many episodes ago. So that's all cool then.
What's this intelligent rope as well, mate? It's strong enough that Sutek, the big god of the universe that brings death, can't destroy it. But but you shut the TARDIS doors and it cuts in half. So it's not that strong a intelligent rope, is it? If it can just be, or am I missing? Again, am I missing something here?
No, dude. It's
so Sutek can't free himself from it, but you shut the TARDIS doors and it's weak enough to be cut.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's pretty much the.
I could go on forever.
Yeah, we could do, dude. I think just to put this in a nutshell, story-wise and all that stuff, narratively, very thin on the ground with a lot of it. Let's talk about some characters then. Yeah. So, good news for everybody. Now that the reset button has been slapped, we now have Colonel Winston Chidozi back. So that's good.
Who?
The guy that went behind the TARDIS in the last episode.
Oh, him.
And was
genuinely didn't know who you meant. Wasn't even being sarcastic.
Yeah, he's back, dude. So that's good.
Yeah, he's back. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Cake. After all that glaring Kate gave the Doctor, but I hope she says sorry.
So yeah, old Chidozi is back after the old the giant reset. So if you're a fan of that character, then he's back and all that stuff. Before we get on to some of the other characters, one sort of remaining mystery, I guess, as well as the whole Susan Triad thing that we had delivered throughout the entire thing, is this whole Mrs. Flood. So she was, she's in it for a couple of times, but most notably, dude, at the very, very end. And so Anita Dobson and dude, so she's got that wonderful way of being sort of warm and friendly, but then in a second being quite menacing and mysterious. So I thought she was really cool as Mrs. Flood, and it is a cool little mystery. But do you reckon it's a worthwhile mystery carrying over, or do you reckon that's the only thing we've seen of her? Because it's like a double whammy mystery, right? The first mystery is that the obvious one is, who is she? And then the second mystery is that she did this thing that we had in the first couple of episodes where they broke the fourth wall, which we never saw any more of actually from the Doctor doing that, did we? We had this crazy theory, didn't we, that is this?
Oh,
are they
actually, he
trapped
did wink
in
to camera, didn't he? Did the wink to camera in Devil's Cord, the Doctor. So he
Yeah,
did
that's
break
what-
the fourth
yeah.
wall a little bit in that, yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So in the first couple of episodes, they did that, but then because you and I were like, oh, maybe we had this sort of crazy theory. It was like a WandaVision thing where is all this happening inside a thing that's being observed by us or somebody else, whatever. But that
Yeah.
didn't really play out. But one thing that's definitely been there is Mrs. Flood from the Christmas special, I believe, at the very end, saying something like, "What's wrong? Have you never seen a TARDIS before?"
Yeah.
Fast forward to this one, where she essentially gives you a little epilogue of So, and she's addressing us very much. That's clear. So, what do you reckon to Mrs. Flood then? Another mystery. I'm not sure if we'll see her again, if she's going to pop up, or if this is a unique little thing for season 1. But I like Anita Dobson in that role, though. She was cool.
I agree, mate. Yeah, no, we're almost certainly going to see her in Series 2, maybe the Christmas special, I don't know. But yeah, I'm very intrigued by Mrs. Flood as a character, and I think Anita Dobson's great at switching between this really likeable, sort of slightly dotty old lady to being quite sinister. I think she's really good at that. I am intrigued by it. I'm trying not to get my hopes up after all the letdowns of the reveals in this episode, but we noticed last week that she was wearing a very Clara type outfit. This week at the end, she's wearing like this big white fluffy coat, which looks very Romana 1-esque. So I'm trying to work out now what else she's worn, because it seems like she's cosplaying as the Doctor's previous companion. So I'm wondering what we're going to get next. And I really like that idea, because I don't believe it is his companion. I believe she's probably like some evil character that's just sort of goading the Doctor to, haven't you noticed I'm wearing like, Clara's top this week sort of thing. So I'm very intrigued who this character is going to turn out to be. And I hope she's in Series 2 more, because she wasn't in this series as much as I thought she was going to be. So I feel like she might take a more prominent role in the next series, mate. But and I'm all for that. I really like it. Every time she's on screen, I really like her. She said as well, didn't she, when she turned to dust, she said, I had such great plans or something.
Oh, yeah.
And she did say clever boy as well when she came back, when she was brought back alive. Yeah. And she said, oh, that clever boy, which is a Clara line. Mm-hmm. So they're definitely playing into this companion thing. Really intrigued to see where it goes.
Yeah. And if it is no idea, but if it is Clara, dude, which would be fairly crazy.
Oh, please no.
That wouldn't be a million miles off reality, because the Christmas special is written by Moffat. So,
true. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. He does. Well,
there we go.
No, It won't be Clara, mate. It's more likely to be like Missy or someone like that. This is the sort of thing Missy would do, isn't it? To wear all the to have these little hints of the Doctor's previous companion. So. I don't think it will be Missy, but it's that. I feel it's going to be that type of character.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree, dude.
Or the Rani.
Yeah. And then we have a bunch of... I don't think we should spend too much time on these guys, purely because they're listed as appearing in the episode, but they're literally only in it at the very beginning and at the end. And that is people like Nick Briggs as the voice of Lynx, Lenny Rush, the new character, as Morris Gibbons, Harriet Arbinger, Rose Noble, although she's in it a little bit at the end, but Kate Lepus-Stewart, these people who were in it a lot in the previous one, they're not really in it much, are they? Sort of they collapse to dust at the beginning and then they sort of pop up at the very end and stuff. So, but from those guys though, pretty much it was all filmed at the same time, really, dude. So pretty much the same stuff as last week from those guys, right?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Russell just felt like he needed to get them out of the story very early on, like rather than try and have to think of things for them to do and trying to constantly shoot and destroy Sutekh. Let's just get them out of the story and bring them back at the end. So yeah, they get nothing to do, especially Rose. Like a lot of people have pointed out, when it was all kicking off and Morris is firing lasers out of his what is that thing called that he has?
Oh, his little Segway thing.
His Segway.
Yeah.
A couple of people have mentioned there was a soldier knelt down in front of him that probably got just shot as well. But Rose was doing nothing. I noticed that she was on her iPad. I don't know what she was meant to be doing. I don't even know if she got a line of dialogue. in this. Amazing that Lenny Rush, despite, I don't think he got any dialogue, did he? But despite that, just seeing him munching on pizza at the end was just a fun. I don't know why. Something about his cheeky personality comes through in his performance that even just eating a piece of pizza made him a fun addition to the episode. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, but they got nothing to do, mate. They were written out. They got nothing to do in this story.
No, not really. No.
So they weren't bad. They weren't good. They just had nothing to do.
Yeah, same with Susan Triad, really. She came back at the end and she had a nice little moment with Kate, where they offered her a job and she had this kind of sort of I don't know how to explain it. She had this way about her that was like, oh, that's that sort of done and taken care of. I'll just go back to doing me every day. Like, it didn't faze her at all what had happened to her, like the gravity of of what had happened to her. She just had this, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this is a negative. She just had that kind of old school, wise, experienced not old, but a bit like, when something happens and you think it's the end of the world, but your mum's like, you'll be all right. That kind of, that sort of wisdom about yourself and the world that, something crap happened, but, it's going to be all right. We're all good. So I love that little moment of it. It was just, like you said, they're just not in it, a lot. So.
And what is going on at unit these days, mate? They're just inviting everyone off the street to come. Do you want to be in unit? Yeah, go on then. They're just inviting everybody in.
Yeah.
This top secret organisation has got a massive tower. And just, come on in.
Mm-hmm. Stark Tower. Yep.
Stark Tower.
Okay, and then we obviously heard more from Gabriel Wolf as the voice of Sutek. Mm-hmm. Love the treatment they put on his voice. He's got a great voice anyway.
Yeah.
But they put this real deep bass on it and some effects, quite subtle, but sounded very cool. So glad to see Gabriel Wolf back, because it was great to hear him at the end of the last episode, wasn't it? It was really they probably could have got pretty close to him with somebody doing an impersonation of Sutek. Probably could have got pretty close, but just great to hear the actual guy, doing his thing. So
absolutely,
that was cool. Yeah. Before we get on to the Doctor and Millie, just again, reasonably quickly, do you reckon Bonnie Langford had a good one? She had a bit more to do in this one. Well, obviously the whole thing where she succumbed to Sutek's curse, and she was one of the givers of his wish of death, sort of thing. And it was cool to see that very quick little spiral from being helpful to being one of those people. So always been a big fan of Mel's character, haven't we? When we've reviewed lots of Classic Who, and Bonnie Langford's very cool. So yeah, she had a good one just because she had a bit more to do and there's a bit more meat on the bones for that character.
Well, I liked Bonnie in it, and I felt when Sutek was taking over her and she turned evil and stuff, she did it really well. I do like that scene where the Doctor realises as well that was very nicely underplayed. When he just holds her hand and you get from the Doctor's reaction that he's picked up on something's wrong. And when she goes out the room, he's like, she was too cold. I thought that was a good moment and quite eerie. Bonnie was great in it. And good chemistry with Ncuti as well. Those two worked really well together. And there was that nice moment when she's in the TARDIS, the memory TARDIS, where she hugs. Well, first of all, she finds the Sixth Doctor's outfit, which is nice. And then she's hugging Seventh's jumper. So some nice moments from her in this. I thought Bonnie was really good in it.
Yes, agreed. She was good. Someone else that was really good, this is an easy one for me, short and sweet, that Millie Gibson was great again as Ruby. I've really liked her portrayal of Ruby throughout this entire season, and she was very good in these two as well. She just has she's such a young actress, right? But she just, she has this kind of maturity about her.
Yes.
That, she seems a little bit wiser than her years, if that makes sense. And she's got a bit of strength about her as well. She's almost like a nice mix of like Donna and Rose. Do you know what I mean? So she's got that vulnerable side, but she's also really strong. And just Millie's performance as well has been rock solid. And I've got a massive respect for her as well, purely because she had to pretty much do all of 73 yards by herself.
Yeah. Which
is no easy thing to accomplish as like I said, a new actress, new to the show and everything. So, and she was great in this, dude. Like she has been all season for me. So a highlight definitely one of the positives for me was Millie Gibson.
Absolutely agree, mate. I think she's been superb all this series, and I've said it before, I don't think she's been given that much to work with in terms of characterization, but she's really brought the character to life. She's absolutely cemented herself as one of my favourite new companions since the show came back. Very, very likeable, very, very believable, very confident in her performance, considering, like you said, I think she's 19 or 20 now. She's young. So yeah, a great companion. I was sad to see her go. I feel like, I don't know if she was always designed to be a one series companion. We probably won't find out because there's been rumours and all this nonsense. But if she was only designed to be a one series companion, I feel it's a shame because she definitely had more in her. I feel like we're only just getting to know her. I know she's going to be in series 2, but I don't think she's going to be in it that much, I feel. Yeah, so I'm sad to see her go, to be honest with you. I think... is it Verada Sethu? I'm never sure how you say her name. The new companion. I think she's got some big shoes to fill. I think Ruby's, even though she's only done one series, and even this series, some episodes like Dot and Bubble, she wasn't in it that much. I think she's really made her mark. And I'm sad to see her go, mate. I really am. I think it was a nice payoff, her getting to find her mum, and that was a nice shot of them all together at the end where the TARDIS vanishes, disappears. But... I feel we needed another series, a full series with her at least. So, a bit sad to see her go, to be honest. She's been really, really good this series. She's been a highlight, actually. She's been an absolute highlight of this series for me.
She has, yeah. 100%, mate. Yeah, she has. And then, so Shooty, his final episode of the season, and back to a bit of form with him for me, dude. So, in the last episode, I was like, right, great. We've got past the doctor that's getting rocked to his core every 5 minutes and crying and all the rest of it. We've got a little bit more of a take charge doctor and all that good stuff. But then back here, it's back to sort of form really for the season. And I kind of get the feeling that Shooty is trying his level best to try and bring some range to this, where the moments where he's shouting and he's very forceful. He's trying his best, but I think, to be honest with you, some of that stuff is not landing for me as when some previous actors have done it. Yeah. So I think he's like all the ingredients are there, like we've said this before with certain things. Like the ingredients are there, like his acting skills are top notch. He's a great actor. He's been very good for the most part as the Doctor. And some of the story beats and all the rest of it haven't been that strong for him. But there are moments there's a few moments in this episode and the last one where you can tell that he wants to be shouty Doctor. Like the best we've probably seen in that area is probably the end of Dot and Bubble. That's probably like the best for that stuff. So there was a couple of scenes here where we really needed him to be, just absolutely going for it. And I think, however much he's trying to deliver that stuff, it's just not. And I hate comparing stuff like this, dude, but, if you had Tennant shouting his head off here, or Eccleston, or even Capaldi doing his thing, I think, that just the gravitas there and the weight that's carried with it is just portrayed a lot more clearly to the viewer. Whereas when Shooty does it, I feel like he's almost there. He's trying to do that stuff, but yeah. So it's not really landing some of those bits for me, dude, for him. But overall, he is a very good actor and a good Doctor. I think we've got way better stuff from him to come in season 2. Potentially way better stuff. So yeah, not too bad. Good Doctor. But in this particular episode, for me, just back to the whole, being a bit down and cryy and stuff. Yeah. So.
Yes, yeah. I absolutely agree with you, mate. I think Shooty's got all the ingredients there, and I think he is a good actor, and I think he is going to settle very nicely when we get into series 2. I have to agree, for whatever reason, certain moments like the Doctor shouting and also when he was saying, I'm going to defeat you and all this to Sutek, didn't quite land for me, didn't quite have the power behind his performance. But I think a lot of the time, a little bit with Jodie, he is being let down a little by the characterization they've given to him. I mean, I feel that he's taking what they've put into the script and he's absolutely making the most of it. But I feel like all this crying and they are making this Doctor more emotional, for want of a better word, but I feel like they're doing it too much. You lose the impact of it. I was talking with a friend the other day about Series 1, and I remember the exact moment when Eccleston cemented himself as the Doctor to me, where he started crying. There's a single tear goes down his face when he's talking about Gallifrey in the end of the world, or the Time War or something. And I remember saying I saw such an intense moment in the Doctor there, that I just thought, that's the Doctor. He's really tried to hold that tear back, because the Doctor doesn't cry, he gets on with it. Whereas Ncuti, there has been way too much blubbing, and to me, he is a bit too emotional in the way they're making him a bit. They're weakening the Doctor a bit by writing him like that. But in terms of Ncuti, as his performance, I think he's absolutely delivering on what they put in the script. I think he's really trying his best, and I think he's doing, for the most part, a very, very good job. But I think he's been slightly undermined by some of the writing, and not quite feeling that power of the Doctor inside yet, coming through. It's slightly, like you said, not hitting the mark every time yet, but it's his first series, so let's let him settle in. And I do think, for the most part, he's done a great job, and I've instantly liked his Doctor. From the word go, I've liked his Doctor. I'm rooting for him. I always think, would I want to travel with this Doctor? With any Doctor. Like, no offence, but with Jodie's Doctor, I wouldn't want to travel with her, because I would be worried I'd be dead within 5 minutes. I had no confidence in her Doctor that if we were in a situation where I might be killed, I would survive. She'd probably run off and let me die so that she could escape. No confidence. Whereas Ncuti Doctor, I'd happily travel with him. I think he'd be fun. I think he'd do everything he could to make sure I got out of a situation alive. So I am really liking his Doctor, don't get me wrong, but I do agree, certain moments not quite hitting yet.
Yes, I think we can agree on that one, dude.
Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned you had a whole sort of slew of notes and stuff and pages. Is there anything that you want to bring up that you've not got off your chest yet, dude, before we put a score on it?
To be honest with you, mate, I could probably rant for hours on this episode. It's got a lot in there, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to just go off on a tirade any more than I already have. No, I think I've sort of got most of it off my chest. I thought Murray's music was good this week. Again, I loved the bit where Mel was being taken over, and there was this sort of deep vocal track. I don't know if you know what I mean. It's like roar, like this sort of roaring. There was some good stuff from Murray. A little bit typical Murray, if I'm honest. It wasn't anything I wouldn't say particularly stand out, but it was good. It was good Murray Gold, if you know what I mean. So liked the music. But no, mate, I mean there's lots more plot holes I could run through, but let's not keep going down that rabbit hole. I'm just going to sum it up by saying overall it was just a very messy, clunky episode that didn't deliver on the build-up that we've had, not just over this series, but from last week's episode itself, it just didn't deliver.
Yep. No, I'm on board with that one, dude. Can't argue with that.
There is one more thing. Sorry, there is one more thing, and I do have to mention this, actually, because I wanted to ask you. I was absolutely convinced we were going to see Caroline Ford. Now, I know I've fallen into the trap. Russell's dangled that carrot, and he's laughing his head off that I'm falling for it. But I did think we were going to see Caroline Ford, and I know we saw her on a TV screen, but I thought I thought at the end, when the Doctor had said goodbye to Ruby, and when there was about 5 minutes left, I thought, here we go. He says that she's changed him as the Doctor. He says he's thought about family more, and he made a mistake. He's gonna go back now, and even if the episode ended there with him landing outside Susan's house and the door opening and Caroline appearing, that would have been enough for me. But we didn't see her, and I'm gonna be honest, mate. I'm disappointed. I didn't even want her to be an integral part of the episode. I just want to see Caroline Ford back in the show. As I said, just seeing Ncuti Doctor go into a house and the camera pans back and they're sat having a cup of tea through the window and the camera pans up to the sky. That's all I want. I just want to see the Doctor go back and see Susan. But also, and just very quickly, I don't want the stuff from Big Finish to be undone as well. He keeps talking about that he never went back. There is some absolutely fantastic stuff between the 8th Doctor and Susan on Big Finish. I know some people don't count it as canon, but trust me, it's fantastic, the storyline. I'm not going to ruin, but there's some very it changes the character between the Doctor and Susan in terms of there's a big event that happens, something disastrous, and I don't want that to be forgotten or overlooked. So it does slightly annoy me when he keeps saying he hasn't gone back, because I'm like, you have gone back. You went back as the 8th Doctor. But anyway, they don't even have to touch on that, mate. I just want to see the Doctor go back and see Susan. We don't even have to hear any dialogue. You know, I just want to see them together on screen again. I just want to see Carol and Ford on screen again in Doctor Who, you know. But we didn't get that.
Mate.
We didn't get it. And I just wonder how you feel, whether it's right that we, you know, that carrot wasn't picked up, or or if you're not bothered. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, it would have been lovely to see her. Absolutely would have been lovely. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where he was damned if he did, damned if he didn't. You know, if he would have brought Carol Ann Ford into it, then you would have had a bunch of people saying, not that he has to pander to fandom anyway, but you know, you would have had a bunch of people saying, you could have made more of the character. Why is it only a cameo?
True.
Or if she was in it properly, they'd have been like, why do we need to see Susan? Mm-hmm. You know, this is not about Susan, blah, blah, blah. It's about Ruby's mum and all that stuff. So, but I'm with you though, dude. I would love to have seen just a little nice little thing at the end where it kind of implies, you know, that he's gone to see Susan, and just a little cameo from her, even if it's just like 5 seconds of screen time.
Yeah.
It would have been nice, but yeah. I'm indifferent on that one, dude, and I'm not really a fan of being indifferent, but honestly, it didn't bother me either way, really.
Fair enough, mate.
Yeah. Okay, dude. Scores on the doors. I think it's my turn.
You first.
To go first. I'm going to give this a 5.
A 5
out of 10. Yeah, I think a couple of, not because in some past reviews we've said things like, with a little tweak here and there, you know, this could have gone from a 5 to an 8 or something like that. I think with this one, dude, there was just too much of there were too many big elements at play to change. It would have required a complete rewrite on a lot of things to make this a higher score. I think overall, dude, I'm not going to go on about it. It's just disappointing and frustrating. So a kind of middle of the road episode, certainly not what you'd expect from a finale. So a 5 from me. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 5. I feel like I might be being a bit generous, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't as bad as Space Babies, which I gave a 4. I would probably, would I watch this again? I don't know, probably not. But I don't know, it did have a few good bits, I suppose, but overall it wasn't great. So yeah, middle of the road. I'll go with you, mate. Same, 5.
5s all round.
5.
Nice. All right then. Right, over on the socials, we had quite a few in this week, as expected. Yeah. Finale week, so I'm just going to rattle through these and try and reduce them a little bit. But if you want to check out the full reviews and everything, just head over to our Twitter or our Facebook. You can see all of the listeners' reviews over there. But kicking off on Twitter with Adrian Beck, says, I wanted to love it, but it was a letdown for me. I'm a fan of The Last Jedi, but the same storyline here was built up to such epic proportions that when the reveal came, it felt like a trollish rug pull. Sutek defeat also left questions. A 4 out of 10, but happy for those who enjoyed it. John Winston says, a damp squib after the previous barnstormer of an episode. Not awful, but a somewhat unsatisfying ending to the most frustrating and uneven season of Who since McCoy's first year. Millie was brilliant though. Hope she returns next year as she's been a star. A 6 out of 10. Okay. Our writer Jordan says, not as good as the first part, but the performances from all involved were great, especially Bonnie Langford, who was probably the MVP of the story. Overall, enjoyed the series. Can't wait to see what's next. Everett Stevens says, worst Who finale. Killing off unit at the start only signalled yet another RTD reset button solution. And goes on to say that that RTD had 12 episodes from last October now to tell a coherent, engaging story and completely failed. Lands on a 2.
A 2, yeah.
Yeah, Chippy T. Fun, but another reset button. What a newbie's going to make of a 50-year-old villain, and they won't understand the significance of who Sutek is. Goes on to give it a 6.5. Mrs. Chippy said, "Who does Sutek get? What does Sutek get by killing everybody? What's next? Nothing, so it's pointless."
Yeah.
Tom Turlow says, As a sci-fi action blockbuster, it was typical RTD finale fare. Silly, fun, but with more holes than a slice of Swiss cheese. It says, a heartwarming tale of a young woman finally meeting her mum. It was nice enough. As always, the second half of an RTD two-parter doesn't really stick the landing, and goes on to give it a 6 out of 10. Okay. Mark from the Mr. and Mrs. Who podcast.
Oh, hello, Mark.
You know the old Proctor Who.
I do.
Absolutely dreadful. RTD needs sacking. Death and death equals life. WTF. Sutek was totally wasted in this and defeated by taken for a walk down the time vortex. Such drivel. 3 out of 10 worst finale ever. Oh dear.
Oh dear, Mark, not impressed.
Yes. Can't be blank. Says it seems a strange thing to accuse him of, but I don't think RTD actually understands Doctor Who. I thought he claimed to be the ultimate fan, but in fact he has turned into a cross between Independence Day and Lorraine Kelly. If you watch Tales of the TARDIS, PMO, 1975 Shames, 2024. Oh dear. Chris Carty says, another big finale based around a complete reset. A little predictable, a little silly, and totally illogical. I quite enjoyed it. 7 out of 10.
7, okay.
And Sarah, the running Whovian, she's back again.
Always running.
Disappointing. The performances and SFX were great, but the plot was all over the place. Had the build-up to the spoon scene been cut?
Oh, really?
Potentially, Sarah, yeah. Did RTD not realise that turning everyone to sand would lessen the overall impact? I'm afraid I don't find the reunion very convincing either. 6 out of 10. Thank you very much, guys. On the Twitter, over on Facebook, Mark Hugo says, disappointing after the build-up from the previous ep. A cop-out with Ruby's mother just being someone ordinary, and the reset button was back. 4 out of 10. Darren Sykes, disappointing. Once everyone had been turned to dust so early in the ep, you knew a big reset. MacGuffin was on its way, and this time it came in the form of a whistle and leash. Goes on to give it a 2 out of 10.
2? Oh.
Yeah. Enzio Montegino, I think I'm saying that right, says complete anticlimax. The spoon scene was pointless. The line about the birds, Rose just standing there, could have been a cardboard cutout. Naming Ruby with a point, Sutek being defeated, blah, blah, blah. It goes on to give it a 2 out of 10.
A 2, blimey.
Dale Graham, made little sense and very disappointing. 2 out of 10. Daniel Hickey, don't know why it's getting so much hate now. It was nothing spectacular, but it was all right. I'm sure we're building to much bigger and better things. I like the idea of a god being so wound up about a normal person that it came to their demise. 6 out of 10.
6, okay.
Paul Graham, I think it's tied up loose ends and left it with the Mrs. Flood mystery for us to ponder. It was a race to the end, which felt exhilarating on the journey, but then a calm and quiet end. The story beats felt unusually paced because of this, and I felt the energy at the start was very slow. Goes on to give it 7 remembered TARDIS treasures out of 10.
Okay.
Alex Bobbins, conflicted by this one. It was enjoyable, but I felt let down by the wrap-up. The god of death deserved better than the easy reset option, where literally nobody dies. Also, why was Sutek so interested in Ruby's parentage? Did he pass the time with a genealogy subscription during his long waits? Goes on to give it a 6. Peter Falkus, disappointing. Shooty's doctor is far too human. What happened to the mysterious alien? Crying in nearly every episode is getting a bit toe-curling. I do think he's a great choice, but so far Russell is missing a trick with how he should be portrayed. Goes on to give it a 3. Okay. Jeff Waddle says Sutek was badly used. It was an abomination. A now more even powerful god taken for a walk down the time vortex, and now somehow brings the dead back to life. Give me a break. Jeff's not happy. Goes on to give it a 2 out of 10. Lloyd Graver. So, can anyone explain the whole snowing thing with Ruby? Honestly, that's left me baffled. The memory TARDIS was explained, but it was a bit loose at best. At one point, I got excited and then thought, oh, South 73 yards will be explained, but no. No. 2.5 out of 10.
Wow.
Harry Walker, one of our writers. Short and sweet from him, just says Empire of Death, more like Empire of Dogmuck. Oh dear. Luke East had me gripped up to roughly the halfway mark, after which I knew I was sadly going to be a hasty wrap-up and not the resolution that Sutek deserved. And don't get me started on Ruby's mum. The hype around this mystery woman had been so whipped up since Christmas, and it felt such an anticlimax. Goes on to give it a 3 out of 10. Richard Hardman, as predicted, a massive anticlimax, more plot holes than a field full of moleholes. I hate watching Who and not liking the result, but this was worse than England's performance against Denmark, and at least they got a draw. This was a crushing letdown for fandom. 4 out of 10.
4, yeah.
Just a couple more to go. Ash Prosser gave a huge review. Basically not happy with it. Gave it a 2 out of 10. Sean Rivet says, I thought it was okay. I think Boom and Rogue stand out as my faves, and I love the nanny filter from Space Babies. Paul McMahon says, after Sutek's kind gift of death leaving nothing but dust and darkness, you just know RTD's going to pull a Deus Machina and press a reset button from somewhere. He says, the plot holes in this story are endless, but I'm still giving it a solid 8 for the enjoyment factor. Okay. And lastly, Monty Savage says, Ruby's mother must have not wanted the baby because she was just watching a floating ship in the sky almost crash on her baby. Lots of plot holes, but good moments for certain characters. Goes on to give it a 7.5. Okay. So, not great overall, I think, is the takeaway. I think the average score is probably a 4 or a 3 due to all the 2s and 3s we got. And there's a couple of 8s in there and a 7, but overall, dude, not great.
No, it's kind of crashed and burned. I feel like we may have been generous giving this a 5, mate. But yeah, it's certainly not. I think if you look at the average score there, this hasn't gone down well.
Not at all.
There's no getting around it.
Nope. So then, pretty low scores across the board from our listeners. Thank you very much, guys, for getting in contact. And as I said, if you want to read the full reviews, I just gave you sort of the headlines there. Then go and check them out on Facebook and Twitter on our accounts there. And a 5 each from us for Empire of Death. You can catch our views and thoughts on the entire season when we do our round table next week with the writing team. So stay tuned for that. But next week, we are reviewing a classic story that we didn't get round to before season 1 started. So what are we doing next week, dude?
Hang on, do you mean I thought we were doing... Sorry, mate, just opposite. I thought we were doing Roundtable next week and then Curse the following week.
Oh, we're doing it the following week. Oh, gotcha.
Is that what you meant?
Gotcha. No, it's fine. Gotcha.
I just thought we'd do like a wrap-up next week and then do Curse the following week. So
yeah, no worries. I'll redo that.
Just give it... Yeah, sorry. It gives you a bit more time to watch it. Yeah, we'll just do the Roundtable next week, yeah.
So a 5 apiece from us for Empire of Death. And next week, dude, we'll be chatting to our writing team, right, to give you our thoughts on season 1 as a whole.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to jumping on board the round table next week and chatting with those guys and getting their thoughts on it. I'm sure Maria is going to have a few things she's going to want to get off her chest. So yeah, really looking forward to doing the round table with our writing team next week and having a chat through our thoughts on this series as a whole, really. Just our overall thoughts on it, yeah. Indeedy.
Yes, so make sure you stay tuned for that next week. And until then, I think it's a good place to wrap it, dude, for episode 403.
Alrighty.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Big Blue Box podcast. That was 403, and our review of the season finale, Empire of Death. And average to low scores at best for this one, which is a bit of a shame. So fingers crossed. We haven't got any new Doctor Who for about half a year now. So when the Christmas special rolls around, fingers crossed we get a decent one for that, which is written by the Moth Bag. So who knows how that one's going to go.
I know.
Based on previous Christmas specials, but there we go. In the meantime, make sure you are following or subscribing to the podcast on whatever app you listen to your podcasts on, so you won't miss an ep when it goes out every Friday, plus the roundtable eps that go out every month. You can also listen for free over on the website, which is bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk, and you can also check out the amazing reviews and articles and editorial pieces from the writing team, so go and check those out. And we chat Doctor Who throughout the week on the socials too. There are links on the website, so head over to whatever you hang out on, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, to get involved over there. And we have a very cool free Discord server as well, so come and chat Doctor Who with other Who fans. Also, don't forget to remember to check out Adam's channel over on YouTube. It is, of course, The Geek's Handbag.
The Geek's Handbag, yeah, go check out my YouTube channel. Just dropped a new video. Lots of Doctor Who unboxings and location visits and all that sort of thing. Go and have a look. Also on all the socials. I'll see you there.
Go and check him out for sure. Okie dokie. Until next week's round table then. My name is Gary.
My name's Adam.
And remember,